Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Andrew, and today very excited to have on our channel Ashley Palms, where I will be doing her read on, which I know some people, this is your most favorite part, because we'll see how much I struggle with words. But hey, Ashley is the head of Cybersecurity Risk Transformation with over 12 years of experience in cybersecurity and technology. Ashley is a forward-thinking leader specializing in cyber risk, enterprise risk, and AI risk transformation. As a global cybersecurity leader, she has shaped risk strategies across 11 countries, helping organizations stay resilient and compliant while minimizing risk attack structures. Surfaces, blah. As a recognized leader in the industry, Ashley serves as the 2025 board member in the Women in Cybersecurity Phoenix affiliation. She's also the founder of Women Cybersecurity Collective, an initiative dedicated to mentoring cybersecurity professionals and uplifting marginalized communities. Ashley is committed to driving strategic risk transformations by empowering her team through servant leadership. When she's not tackling risk, Ashley and her husband are busy chasing their two French bulldogs, Thor and Nuki, around Arizona. Thanks so much for coming on the channel, Ashley. And yeah, dog names. Who had ever known that had been my last glitch? I thought I did so well toward the end.
You did great. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So, Ashley, we met I think probably, guys, I've had you on my LinkedIn for a while, and we finally got to meet in person here, I think about 1 or 2 weeks ago at the Phoenix Tech Summit in Phoenix, where I know I've talked to several other members with the WiCyS Phoenix affiliate kind of group here on the channel. So first off, so glad to finally pull you on. So I feel like we had such a good kind of jive when we had that conversation, and getting to hear and kind of pick your background with what you're specializing kind of been in with this industry, I think it's going to be huge for the listeners. So first off, thanks so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
I'm honored to be here.
So first things first, Ashley, is the question I always ask everyone as they come onto the channel. So cybersecurity. When we are growing up, when we're going through school, we're telling our teachers and parents when they ask us, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? We tell them doctors, we tell them astronaut, lawyers, we tell them firefighters, but not everyone picks cybersecurity. But that's obviously something that you've definitely found a niche in. What's kind of the reasoning, or kind of what's your story of how and why you got into cyber?
This is such a great question because often we don't see ourselves in this domain and we go, how do we get here? And I do retrospective often, even as I take on new mentees or talk to my own mentors. And really, I started out my career in IT and information technology in the data and analytics domain. And I actually majored in business and communications. And so I don't even know how I ended up in IT, but now when I look back, I go, those transferable skills really laid the framework and the foundation for how I show up as a professional. And working in data and analytics, working with the DBAs and the engineers, it was just an inherently natural transformation for me to segue into the cybersecurity domain. So I started out in project and program management and continued to up-level, upskill, take on more technical domains, which helped me navigate my way over here.
And it's so funny because a lot of folks look at the overarching picture of breaking into cyber where it's like, I have to get into the SOC, I have to be a pen tester or the help desk role. I mean,
Right.
but obviously it feels like kind of your path went kind of like around it a little bit and kind of diving into the GRC world. And I guess the first question I kind of have for a lot of folks is, can you kind of do maybe a short description of what is GRC when that kind of looks into an organization of why that's important and what it's about?
That's a great question. GRC is governance, risk, and compliance. We are really those controls that safeguard and help the business be resilient against threats, against nefarious activity, ensuring we're compliant with regulations and that our risk posture is desirable for potential vendors or customers that may want to partner with the business. So governance, think standards, policies, procedures. Risk is that the inherent risk, the residual risk, the risk posture of the organization. How are the controls working? What are the efficacy of those controls? And then the compliance is, are we maintaining hygiene? Are we maintaining cadence, configuration, updates, patches, et cetera, in a timely manner? And what's the maturity of those controls? All of those have synergy together the GRC is really symbiotic. They have to work as one. It's all under one umbrella.
No, and that's a great explanation of it. Is there anything in particular, and this may have been coming from your business side of the house, but what got you
Mhm.
so passionate about it today and kind of why it's such a thing to be kind of proactive about? I mean, obviously, when we're going to be talking about this further down along the lines of like all the different frameworks and things to kind of like understand looking into GRC, but obviously you have a passion for it because you're very successful and that's what you're obviously helping companies do to protect themselves. What
Yeah.
kind of was the initial spark that kind of maybe got you interested in that path specifically within cyber?
It goes back to my days being a program manager. I love creating new things. And with GRC, there's always new frameworks. As you know, with AI, all the new frameworks coming out, and you have to constantly be able to be agile and adjust. I like creative flow. I like creating new ideologies. And so that's what sparked my interest in GRC because the landscape is always changing and moving, and you have to be able to upskill and adapt. So if your personality is competitive and you like to adapt and create new solutions, GRC is definitely a great vector for you to get through because you have to create new all the time. You have to constantly mature your company and your enterprise. So it's competitive and it's fun.
No, and we've talked about this previously too, where it's like GRC, I think, is an amazing role because not only is it there's a lot of diving into asking why, reaching out to other teams, but there's a piece of
Mhm.
it too that if you're stuck on something, it's not like you're just like you're out in the ocean on your own, right? There's a lot of good, I think, good collaboration skills that also get to grow from GRC positions because if you're looking for a specific maybe like checkbox or something that's a requirement for how logs are being ingested or how
Right.
something's being protected in the organization, you have to be able to communicate with other parts of the team in the organization, correct?
1000%. And specifically, me being in the risk domain, I am an advisor. I'm a guidance point for stakeholders and business units, but it's about multiple perspectives. I always reference the NIST AI or the NIST CSF frameworks. It's always about having multiple perspectives, those cross functional verticals and representation holistically to help guide your corrective action plans, your risk remediation. It's not just you working in isolation, it truly is a team structure of the right advisors in parallel with risk management.
Was is there a point in time when you were kind of going through maybe the early points in your career within GRC or even project management where you learned specific skills that you're maybe weak in and that you had to learn how to either work around or to kind of level up? And what kind of challenges do you kind of face going through these kind of roles?
This is a great question. And I learned quickly by being thrown in the fire. I was put on a huge infrastructure project, pardon me, and I had to learn a work breakdown structure, but also you have to get in the trenches with the teams and the engineers and the DBAs doing the work. You have to sit with them side by side. You have to learn how to understand the network schematics, the landscape, the configurations. I think often in GRC, people think that soft skills is the only thing you need, and you need a hybrid of both technical and soft skills. They really are symbiotic together so that you can understand, but also articulate business requirements. And so for me, that learning curve was learning the technical side of cybersecurity, taking time to slow down and really immerse myself with those processes, with those domains so that I could adapt and be a stronger professional and be a credible resource as well. So it's learning new. When I say GRC is always changing, depending
Always.
on it truly
Always.
is, but also depending on if you're working with products or services or if you're in government, you're going to have to get in there and learn some of the technical details to be a responsible professional in this space.
And it's funny, Ashley, and like I'm going to talk about this not in a negative way, but a positive way, because so many people think when they get into the technical field, they have to get all the certifications. They have to get and dive into everything. And I
Mhm.
mean, I know yourself, you've gone through, I think, what some of the SANS like workshops and some of the other courses as well. But I think you could probably agree with me here that just because you hold or don't hold the certifications, you can still understand frameworks and processes better than someone that's gone through the entire CompTIA suites or the SAN certification suites for these kind of growth and paths. And kind of falls into my next question of the scale of education, certifications, and actual experience within for this example, we'll use GRC because that's where you sit. But where do you see the most importance of all three of these things right now, and which one's the most important to you?
That's a great question. I think that there's two different vectors you can go down for certifications in just literacy within GRC and cybersecurity as a collective. When I first came into cyber, I had my project management certifications. And obviously those skills are transferable, but at first sight you go, well, what does she have for cyber, right? I got in and I learned the framework. I took a year to adapt and learn, and then I went out to start getting certifications. Then I took a SANS boot camp. So I say, figure out what domain that you want to niche down in, and then pursue some certifications if it's necessary. But what you'll find often in cyber is it's your actual hands-on experience that will take you further than any certification ever will. And so when it comes, someone said you should take CompTIA Sec Plus, and I started to study for it, and I go, this isn't my skill set. My skill set is the GRC domain. It's the soft skills. It's the documentation. It's the compliance domain. It's not networking, et cetera, and APIs and coding and such. So you have to honor your truth, I say, and really expose and exploit your strong skills instead of conforming just because you feel like you have to. Follow your actual passion and don't just chase certs. Make sure it is going to make sense for what you want to do long term.
Yeah, and I think you've seen a few of my videos with I got to talk to Paige, and Paige made a good point of this too, where it's like also falling in the same wheelhouse from GRC, is your GRC roles kind of get to be the translators for your
Yes.
C-suite and your technical leads for the organization of why things are important, why things need to be to this specific standard. And just kind of wanted to ask you on that, like what's the truth to that? Or do you think that's kind of like money, like hammer on the nail on the head?
No,
There
that
we go.
is GRC. You are the liaison, which is why I said you need to be a hybrid of technical and soft skill. You need to know enough about the technical, but to be able to translate that almost like a chameleon and communicate that up to your C suite. And then you need to be able to have the literacy to speak numbers, metrics, dollars. For me as a risk practitioner, I have to be able to quantify my risks and be able to explain to the business, why do you care? They don't care about high, medium, low. But I can take those technical risks and understand all these control deficiencies and say, this is going to result in a risk exposure of $3 million. Right. So
I now carry.
yeah. I agree with Paige 1000%. And you really are, I'm going to say a chameleon, a liaison, and kind of like makeshift ninja because you have to be able to straddle both domains, technical and soft skill.
No, and I think nail on the head when it comes to kind of the growth with that and getting your hands-on experience. But for some that are trying to grow through, or they're currently in college or they're going through networking events, I know we've also talked about the importance of like mentorship, networking, community, and ways that we kind of can break that into also, like even myself, for example, like going from my career from law enforcement to cyber, I was very lucky to have and find that kind of mentorship to kind of grow. Any
Mhm.
recommendations or other ways where students or other folks trying to get into these industries that you would recommend kind of trying to go out and network or kind of try to find a mentor within this kind of realm?
I have two answers to this. So, for those that are actively interviewing and trying to get a breakthrough, what I did personally is whenever I was up leveling, I went from being a senior analyst and I pivoted really hard to being a risk engineer. That pivot was a challenge for me. So, create use cases, model simulations in your space, come to your interviews ready with some type of tangible output that you can show your expertise in, even if you're doing homegrown studies. And then find a mentor along that way to help groom, to help you understand what you really want. And ideally, go seek someone that's your North Star. I had an incredible mentor. Her name was Wendy. I met her in my 20s when I was just fresh out of college, when I was still in the project management space, and she was already an executive C-suite. And she took time with me over years just to meet periodically to make sure that I had accountability, but also she spoke tough love over me. And, when things got hard, when I was trying to upskill and maybe timing wasn't always on my side, I think there's value in having someone that has belief in you, but also can help redirect you that's already done what you've done. I mean, done where you want to go.
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
No,
Yeah.
I get what you're trying to say. Like I always tell people too, it's like find the next role you want to go move into and then go look for folks with that title or in that position or in that maybe like next career. Like, so if I want to go be a SOC manager, I should go find and reach out to folks maybe in my LinkedIn that are currently managers and say, hey, look,
Right.
this is what I'm trying to get to. This is my goals of where I'd like to be in the next 2-3 years. Would you be willing to talk 15, 20 minutes, just kind of share some experiences and kind of things that help you get to where you need, where you are today? And no, I think
Yes.
exactly how you kind of explained it, I think that's huge. And yeah, networking in this industry, I think self-branding can help a lot down the road when you're initially trying to break into the industry, being posting on your LinkedIn, sharing your successes, going and actually shaking hands and introducing yourself at local meetups, hangouts, Toastmasters. I know WiCyS does meetups. We have local DC 480 and a ton of other different organizations here in the Valley. And yeah, the thing I would tell people too is like, honestly, just hop on Google and see if there's any, just Google, hey, local cybersecurity meetups and see what that
Right.
kind of initially kind of can direct you to first. I know there's your
Right.
B-Sides conferences, there's DEF CON every year in August. And yeah, going to those conferences too that are free or very low cost to hear and listen to folks do presentations and talks that are something along your interest. And also
Right.
just continuously meeting new people and growing your network is huge. So
And if I can, I would like to layer onto that, being on the board for WiCyS, community is everything. Even if you can't get there in person, dialing into the virtual coffee, happy hours that we have, or when it comes to conferences, be intentional, right? Be authentic. When you're networking, no one wants to have a target on their back. So show up as yourself authentically, build relationships more than networking. Focus on relationship building, getting together for coffee, investing in someone with your time, but just learning their history before you go, can you help me? No one wants to feel used, especially in 2025. It's build authentic relationships, and then over time that it translates into mentorship or deeper networking once you make those connections.
yeah, and it's so funny you say that because like I've opened my doors this year to mentorship, and it's funny because I've talked to folks here in the U.S. I've also talked to folks in India, Canada, and it's wild to me sometimes the amount of gratitude I get just for giving a 30-minute phone call to have a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
And it's like, thank you so much. This is so informative. But the amount of feedback I've gotten back from just giving those quick 30 minutes on a phone call
Yes.
is awesome. And I've mentored about 10 people now this year, which
Wow.
5 have gotten their first job in cyber. And
Nice.
it's such a good feeling when I get that message saying, hey, I took your advice, or hey, I started going through the things you kind of um, provided some insight to do. And nothing I'm giving out is secret information. There's no secret sauce. It's hey,
Mm-mm.
dive into it, knock out a sec plus, go through try hack me, hack the box, go through all these free training sites, find out your interests, whether that's GRC, whether that's
Right.
like IT support, pen testing, SOC work, and then just really kind of try to level yourself up and be the best candidate. So that's one thing I've argued with folks when it comes to like, well, like there's so many people interviewing, like there is, and you need to make sure you're the one that's going to stand out the most when
Yes.
when you're fighting with those other 100 applicants on a job resume or a job interview.
I want to congratulate you for making the space to do that in time. I know you have a crazy schedule as well. And it's something else I want to layer onto what you said. The job market is volatile right now. Everyone's
Mhm.
feeling challenged. And when I go back to talking about mentorship, sometimes mentorship just looks like being someone's pillar of strength, being someone's sounding board to just have grit, to have a backbone, to push harder, to try new things, to flip over every stone. When you're interviewing, sometimes imposter syndrome can seep into people, or you start questioning and doubting when it's quiet. Sometimes you just need to be their biggest champion and advocate, and that's fulfilling in itself, but you're also helping them navigate a really crazy territory that we are all experiencing for the first time with AI right now, in fear and job displacement and such. So, even if mentorship sounds like this big scary thing, maybe it's just being someone's champion for a season, and that will pay off in dividends for you and them.
Quick throw in for the AI piece. It's so funny. One of my friends said like people are using AI to write their resumes, which then going up against AI to grade said resumes, that then is getting auto rejected by AI
Yeah.
through the ATS system. So it's like your resume that you thought was like so well tuned isn't even making it to a real set of eyes, and you're literally fighting AI to get into a job role. And there's been other studies and LinkedIn posts where it's like managers of like, yeah, like I've literally applied for my own position where I know I'm qualified for it, and they automatically get rejected through the ATS system, saying, yeah, you don't meet the requirements. Sorry, but it's like, well, whoa, 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 like I'm
Yeah.
doing the job. What do you mean I'm not qualified to do it? So it's
Right.
wild. It's wild the time we're in right now with the growth of AI, the use of AI, and how it's benefiting and hurting us all at the same time. So yeah, that's just like it's slightly humorical, but like it makes you ponder like, okay, well, like how
Mhm.
helpful and useful is this going to be here in the future?
So I agree with you. And even at the conference we met at, someone came up to me, new college grad, and asked, like, what do I do? How do I break in AI? Bleh, just like word vomit. And I was
Yep.
like, you need to empower yourself, like, stay true to what you want to do, but upskill enough to get you through to have enough on your resume. Those SEO, it's called search engine optimization.
Yep.
Sure, you can have AI help you with your resume, but massage those keywords, but actually take a cheap course on Udemy or Coursera, even free YouTube courses, to just know how to do prompt engineering, to say that you know how to high level understand code review and such. So
Mhm.
augment yourself with AI enough, but don't feel like you have to immerse so deeply where you're just doing it out of fear of we're in this AI space. Like,
Yeah.
think about human in the loop. Just know enough and work with it that way.
No, spot on the money. And tying back into the GRC piece of this, so
Yeah.
we've had this conversation offline, but when it comes into folks trying to get into GRC, is there like a path or is there like a way where it's like if you were a college grad and like, hey, look,
Mhm.
I want to become a GRC analyst? I know we've mentioned like really just understanding the frameworks, but is there any other additional things you'd recommend of folks trying to get into GRC specifically that they should really pay attention to or maybe kind of focus in?
Oh, I love this question. And I think back to the day I was handed a NIST assessment, and my old manager, one of my great mentors, also, Flo, she's like, NIST is what you need to know. NIST is, you put that on your resume, it's going to take you so far. And at the time, I was like, what is NIST? Wow. Crosswalk and parallels between so many frameworks. Once you learn the foundation of NIST CSF or even now the NIST AI RMF, you can have so many opportunities open up to you in terms of ISO, in terms of mapping it to the various different flavors and layers of ISO. So, frameworks in a job interview, if you know a few of them well enough, you have added value to that organization, especially if they're trying to certify for multiple different frameworks or certifications. So start with the more responsible frameworks, the more well-known frameworks, and then
Hmm.
work your way down.
And just to name off a few, because I know we won't go through the entire list, but like so NIST, ISO 27001,
Yeah.
42001. I know we said NIST AI, RMF.
Yeah.
Those
And then
are
another, so two things. ISO 27001, I think that's one of the first ones you should start with. But an edge, if you want to show like your return on investment and how to really prepare a business for resilience, dig into 22301, the business continuity management. There's a crosswalk there with risk assessments and ISO 27001. When you can contain, like, put different frameworks in a container and speak to them, you are showing how you proactively can scope out what's the word I'm looking for? Proactive controls, respondent controls, pre-design controls, build controls. You need to be able to speak through the whole life cycle of a control
okay.
and preparing a business with resilience, like think disaster recovery. You're trying to prevent a risk from materializing if you're in the GRC space, right? So understanding how to prepare a business by knowing those frameworks, how they all map together, those are what you need to speak to in interviews, which will add more value to your resume.
Awesome. And I don't know if you want to think back when you were interviewing in the GRC, but what do you think is like the most important question that a GRC analyst could review or know for that interview process? Like, what's a good question, I guess, that they should be able to explain? And like, I honestly, that could just be, I'm assuming probably something regarding like frameworks of, hey, as a GRC analyst, how would you reference the NIST framework in this organization? But not to throw like a question on you in the spot as if you were interviewing, but what would be a good
Yeah.
question like that they could actually maybe start to go maybe prep or kind of understand when it comes to interviewing for GRC roles?
You need to understand the ecosystem of GRC and the synergies. You need to understand the first steps when you're conducting a risk assessment, what you're looking for, how to collect evidence, how to proactively anticipate how a threat could materialize against the business. So understanding the organization, understanding its vulnerabilities, understanding its product suite, understanding its deficiencies. And when you can understand that and articulate it and then translate that into what is the risk to the strategic objective of the company? What is the risk to us not hitting our revenue targets? So essentially, if I were to distill it down, understand the full life cycle, your risk environment, your framework, ecosystem, the company's strategic objective, and how those all align together. That's what you need to understand if you want to be a strong practitioner in this space.
That is a solid answer. And man, because as I mentioned before, and you and I've talked about this, Ashley, I'm not a GRC individual. I'm part of a SOC. For most of my roles, I've been inside the SOC where I've worked in close proximity to our GRC team, providing logs and answers and solutions of like, hey, do we have this being logged, or is this being collected? And if so, how and why? And we provide
Right.
a quick little blurb saying, yep, this is how, this is why, this is how this is happening. Okay, perfect, thanks. And that's my conversations I've had with GRC is they're going through their checklist saying, hey, yep, we qualify, we're meeting this requirement, we match this. Yes. So no, that's awesome.
Something I want to say about that is I don't believe in the checklist approach. I think that's kind of stale. One other thing I would encourage, especially now to be competitive, is understanding your risk exposures, understanding what's happening in the privacy domain. Earlier, when I said you're always learning, learn about GDPR, learn about privacy regulations, especially with AI in our face. Learn about legal and regulatory exposures that could face the business across your risk landscape. Learn what type of financial infractions you could incur as a business if your controls aren't working as designed, if you don't have adequate cyber insurance. So I just wanted to add that in there. Checklists, yeah, risk assessment could be somewhat like a checklist, but how
Yeah.
can you give yourself that 10% edge by saying, well, beyond the checklist, do we qualify for these different external factors in terms of regulations, privacy, AI, hygiene, et cetera?
So this might sound like a weird, silly question, but when it comes into GRC, do you have a favorite industry that you think when it comes into, like, if you could go back to where you first got your first GRC role, it's like, hey, go be a GRC analyst for a bank or for the state or for like a shopping brand. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Is that like a
it
silly question to
does.
ask? Because I'm like, I know
No,
different companies have different maybe requirements. So yeah, I was just kind of curious if
I
like
do.
if you had like if you could go back and tell Ashley, hey, you're going to be a rock star in like 5, 10 years, but this is the first company or organization you should look into for GRC that you'd really understand a good lumping of everything. And then you can really just go anywhere you want. Does that make
I have a
sense?
it does. I have an Ashley answer, a complicated overthinking answer. Because I have been in multiple industries. So I started out in retail pharmacy, and then I went over to government, and then I went into healthcare, and then I went into
Yep.
semiconductor, and
You've
then
been in a
now
lot.
I'm
That's why I'm like, ooh, this is going to be a good
yeah,
question.
and
So,
now I'm working in financial compliance cloud technology. It depends on personality. So if you like to really take your time and learn something deeply, visceral knowledge, like tribal knowledge, start in government
okay.
because it's a little bit slower pace. It's hard to get into, very competitive, but you can take your time a little bit. If you are really like competitive and you like quick turnover and hustle, being thrown in the fire, go to cloud, financial, tech, and retail pharmacy and healthcare because they are always having to up level and ensure like patient safety,
Hmm.
competitive edge with emerging technologies, and you have to create things a lot faster, a lot quicker, and it's volatile. So if you're super competitive and like that's the way I would go. So it depends. If you're kind of nervous in the service and you're super new to cyber, I would say go with an industry that's a little bit slower. Um, and if you want to just learn it all and get a crazy resume and all this experience really quick, go towards more of like healthcare, financial services, anything that's backed by a product or service. Like,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh man, that was a good answer. I thought that
Was
question,
it?
like,
I'm like,
ooh, this is a good question. I'm like, no, I like that a lot. So it's like, because that's the thing. Like, your resume has such a you've done so much, and I've saw that you've been in so many sectors. That's why I was kind of just curious if you had a favorite. Do you have a
yeah.
least favorite?
Let me think. What? I don't have a least favorite, but each one stretched me for personal growth because some of the industries caused me to slow down
Hmm.
and really marinate in the season that I was in. And sometimes it's not about climbing the ladder and changing roles. It's like really learning a quality skill set. In other industries, I was stretched in many different ways from being pulled multiple directions and new skills. I had to upskill super fast and be proficient. If I had to pick a favorite, I would say right now, because I'm spearheading I love AI risk transformation. It's grown me a lot. And I like working with a lot of people and I get that opportunity in my current uh role and working in a tech stack. So I love what I do now, especially with AI being the forerunner of what I do.
Cool, awesome. Well, no, that's a great answer. I like that a lot. Well, we're toward the tail end of our interview, so I have about two more questions for you, real quick, and then we can wrap
Yeah.
it up. But
Okay.
so we've talked about this previously before the call and a few weeks before, but like, so building your personal brand
Yes.
and being on the board with WiCyS, how has that helped you for growth, for mentoring, for helping the community and giving back? Yeah, kind of like, can you like give us a short little like stint of what that was like and how that's helped?
Yes. So I started building my own personal brand on LinkedIn last year, and it was truly just to share risk management. I just said, I like editing videos. Let's just try it. And I started posting content and got some traction. And I was contacted to be a keynote speaker at a summit last year. And I go, whoa, like, how did that happen? I was just posting for fun and it turned into something and materialized great. And then it allowed me to meet some of the board members from WeSys. And then they saw my skills. They had a need for someone to do social media on their platform. Those transferable skills helped me get exposure and get an opportunity on the board. So, building your brand essentially just means being yourself, showing up, taking up space, don't care what people think. Um, if someone were doing better than you, they would be doing what you're doing now. So stay persistent and building your brand also helps with opportunities, with job hunting, because people can put a face to a name. And the more you show up and you are like brute force almost with what you do, you're going to be the person they think of when they need something. And networking locally will also help you with those opportunities if you want to be a keynote speaker. And so with WeSys, I now have taken something that I just like to do for fun. And now I do social media for WeSys, and it gives me the opportunity to spearhead building a community for them, but also for myself. And believe it or not, in the beginning of my career, I hated public speaking. I remember being asked to, like when you have all hands, and I'd be asked to do an all hands, I would be sweating. And now I love it because I force myself to get out there and to get more experience. So swallow the frog and do it. Do it messily, fail forward, but 10x, find your 10% edge and just keep doing it. Um, and you will find your people, you will find your tribe, but you will also find your confidence when you do that.
It's funny. I use the phrase sometimes make waves in a good way. So it's like no one likes that person that makes waves in a bad way, but it's like, hey, make waves in a good way to stand out in a positive light. And
Yeah.
exactly that, like going through basic training and AIT and all the times in the army, it's always been told like, hey man, just keep your head down, stay out of trouble. I was that guy. It's like, we need to volunteer. I'm like, oh, volunteer. And it's like, but by doing that so many times, I got so many positive things out of it. Like I've met new friends. I got to learn new skills. I got to get out of things that were possibly a negative thing that like, oh, not you, Crotty. You and your battle buddy were doing something good. So you're not in trouble. You guys just keep doing that thing. It's like, oh man, we just dodged a bullet. But the same thing for work. I tell people that once they get into that industry first role or job, be the person your team can go to or count on. If they have an ad hoc job that comes down the pipeline, be the person to volunteer. You may not be familiar with it, or you may not be the most sharpest on the team to do it, but like, hey, we could use some extra help. Hey, I'd love to hop on that project and see what I could do to help. So, no, I think that's an amazing piece of advice to give because I think the same thing, like putting yourself out there gives you the chance to stand out in a good way. So,
Mm, I agree with you. And something I want to say about what you mentioned Servant leadership, I truly do. That is my mantra. And I say it because we all have our own lives outside of corporate, outside of our 9 to 5, right? How can I show up 10% more for someone else that needs me so that when I need them, they're willing to also lean in? Building relationships is truly the foundation of GRC roles, not just personally, but professionally. Like you are partnering with everyone. So, how can you be a partner to others,
No,
serving others? Yeah.
exactly. And that's such good advice. Well, Ashley, I am so glad I got to have you on this channel finally. I know we had to reschedule, but so glad I got you on today. It was only luckily a day. I've had folks I've had to push back and forth left and right because obviously scheduling can be crazy. But as a
Yeah.
huge thank you for coming on. You've earned your awesome Ginger Hacker swag. So I'll make sure I drop that link to you once we're done so that you can
Thank
pick out the item
you.
you would like. As a huge thank you for coming on the channel. And the last question we always ask folks before we sign out is what's the last
Okay.
piece of advice you'd give someone trying to break into cyber?
Be persistent, release mind limiting beliefs, be big, be bold, try new things, do not be discouraged, upskill where you know you have weaknesses and vulnerabilities. If you're on an interview and you don't know, tell them you are coachable, you are moldable, and you will do the work to learn, and then show up and show them how you did that, right? Um, Find out what the company what they're needing. Everyone can have a great interview, but if you can find their pain point and have a solution for that organization, you are more valuable of an asset than anyone else could be. Have belief in yourself, have grit, and don't let your first no stop you. Like, keep going, brute force. Be, completely crisp in your brand and know that you are enough, that is enough, and then the right opportunity will find you in the right time, but be persistent, be consistent, and you got this.
Awesome. Well, everybody, thank you so much if you stuck around this long. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe in the comments below of maybe what your favorite part of this conversation was with Ashley and I. And as always, I will see you on the next episode of Breaking into Cyber.